Hello, in this video I want to talk about the divorce process and how you actually can turn it into a game of two halves. This is a sporting reference. I've tried to find out who said it, but it's apparently unknown. But it did originate around 1988, 1989. And the meaning refers to circumstances that suddenly change. Does that sound familiar? Hello, my name is Elizabeth Goddard, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing both emotionally and physically from the emotional abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. Everything changes, doesn't it? We change, life changes. So wasn't it inevitable that this was going to happen? Perhaps you don't agree. Perhaps you don't feel like that. But let me share with you my thoughts. It's a game of two halves is a sporting reference. It refers to circumstances that have changed suddenly. And you have a break in the middle of a game, whether that's a football match or some other sporting event. The players change ends, there's a rest and before they start again. The term was used, I believe, to describe how a football match can change suddenly. And you might be watching the same players, but they've either lost their energy or focus, or the reverse happens. Perhaps they had a pep talk by their manager at half time, and it's like a different team have walked back on the pitch. So is that natural for relationships? Do people just suddenly change overnight? Do you wake up one morning and find that there's a stranger in bed with you? In one of her books, Caroline Myss describes aging as a natural process. I can't remember whether it was advanced energy anatomy or whether it's transforming trauma. But she states if you see someone who's aged overnight, she says you know that they've been through a really traumatic experience. So would that be the same for relationships? Do people wake up and they look at the person beside them and that they realise they've changed? Or is this something that they notice over a period of time and it gets to a point that they no longer fit together properly? There are couples that have been together from a young age who stay together because they fit and they grow spiritually and emotionally at a similar rate. And there are other couples that realise that they want different things. What they thought life would look like at 30 isn't what they want anymore at 50, and their partner is happy with that life and doesn't want to change. And then there is the relationship that is like the game of football. It's the game of two halves. That two halves could describe the change in their personality during the cycle of abuse, or it could describe the game that's played during the divorce. So it might actually be a game of 3/3. Emotionally healthy people who want to move on will do everything in their power to make sure that the other person gets the closure they need. If you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship, this isn't what you're going to experience. You're trapped in a trauma bond that you need to untangle from. And I've described this like a bindweed grabbing hold of you and strangling the life out of you. And it is the trauma bond that keeps you trapped for so long. And because they are unhealthy emotionally, they won't want you to have the closure. What they want is for you to stay stuck and stay somewhere in the background, ready to leap into action when they send you a message or call you, ready with attention. They play with your emotions and they know exactly what to say to get a reaction from you. You were their project. And like any good student, they studied hard. They saw that you were able to provide them with something that they couldn't get from anyone else. They upgraded to you, and you might have had more money, you might have been able to give them better attention, had better contacts, or any upgrade in their life. They might have been homeless or about to become homeless. They needed to secure you as quickly as possible to ensure that you didn't escape. And once they've set their eyes on the prize, they became very committed to winning. The reason it hurts so much is due to the chemicals that they've triggered within you, breaking down your boundaries. There are 3 stages of abuse, and at each one, it's carried out with perfect timing for the best impact. during the relationship, you will have gone through the cycle of abuse. Idealization, also known as love bombing, where you've received gifts, days out, weekends away, meals. They constantly tell you that they're your soulmate or you are soulmates. There is future faking, constant text messages or messaging, long phone calls, lots of attention, where they're trying to get to know you and what your expectations are. Then you went through the devaluation with the put downs, comparing you to others, words that don't match their actions, eroding your personality, destroying your confidence, smashing any boundaries you had. And then the discard. The discard can happen many times in this type of relationship. They withdraw, they disappear, they go silent, they're secretive. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance and mindfuckery. The damage they cause put you in a state of confusion. You had no idea the abuse is taking place or was taking place. It's like a Chinese water torture. It happened very, very slowly and it turned you insane. You were targeted, you were picked and you were groomed. And like the student studying for an exam, everything you said and did was watched and noted. And they know how to trigger you. And particularly if you're going through divorce, they will use this bank of knowledge against you. They may have swept you off your feet with compliments, gifts, days out, meals out, your every need catered for. You possibly woke in the morning to find messages from them, and this was deliberate, ensuring that they were the first thing you thought about and making you believe that they were thinking about you. In reality, yours might have been one of many that were sent. And perhaps they did the same at the end of the day as well. You might have heard statements like, we have so much in common, we have the same hopes and dreams, we have the same insecurities, you're beautiful, I've never felt this way, we're soulmates. It might have felt like you were looking in a mirror, so really maybe part of you fell in love with yourself. You might not feel like that now, and you might be in so much pain and believe this is all your fault, wondering what you did wrong and how you can get back to that place. So I'm going to repeat this again. They listened and mirrored what was important to you, and they repeated these things back as if they were their own. And as part of the process, they begin not only to take over your life, but also your future. They created a bond that was later so hard to let go of. And this is the trauma bond. And this is the pain that runs so deeply throughout your body, it hurts to even move. You did everything to help them. You received praise for this, but there might have been something inside you wondering who is going to help you and when is it going to be reciprocated. As you were boosted a step higher onto the pedestal, you were told that no one had ever understood them the way you did. They compared you to their exes, and you did more and more for them to show how much you did care. And they told you why you were so special, and they compared you to these exes, sending you little warning signals, affirming to you that they were exes for a reason. And if you wanted to stay in the relationship, you needed to behave in a certain way, or you too would be joining that long line. Yet you didn't question what the common denominator was in these relationships. And this was due to the bonding that was taking place. And you might have spotted a few red flags here and there, but they quickly responded, extinguishing those thoughts, and you wrote them off. And you're hooked, and it's as simple as that for them. They've used this technique before and they will continue to use it. They may refine it over time, but it's like a formula that gets them what they're looking for. And the cycle of abuse gives them the attention they crave. And they're able to manipulate and control people to avoid being abandoned by them. Their devaluation techniques are used to test the water, to check that their formula is working. And if they got it right during the idealization stage, you would have been more invested in the relationship than you were in protecting yourself. They would make comments about your intelligence, something that they perhaps admired you for at the beginning, or for your abilities in certain areas, and perhaps your hopes and dreams. A red flag might pop up, but when you questioned them, they told you that you were either oversensitive or they were only joking. It was these subtle put downs, which they followed by some idealization, that changed the chemical reaction in your brain. And you were addicted to the hormone rush you got from the oxytocin and the dopamine. You might have been confused, why had this amazing person said this? And they then followed it up with a compliment or a gift, and all was forgiven. You felt relief that you were being reinstated on that pedestal that they'd placed you on. So you ignored your intuition, which was telling you to get out, run away, believing that they were right and you were soulmates. After all, how can someone who believes in you and treats you in this way be wrong? Gradually, the attention you received at the start of the relationship disappeared, and you accepted any little crumb they threw your way. They used techniques such as triangulation. They're talking about their exes too much. And these people went from being devalued at the start of the relationship, when they were used as a training aid and an example to ensure that you knew, if you wanted to stay in the relationship, what you needed to do or the way you needed to behave. And they went from that to being idolized in an attempt to make you jealous. Anyone who gives them attention was used to break your self-esteem. And they were used to draw you closer to them, so you would fight for their attention. They created triangles with anyone that you would see as a threat. They love to turn people against each other. And they keep people just far enough apart so they can't compare anything, but close enough to ensure that you know they're a threat. And they manufactured situations to make you jealous or question their fidelity. Everyone has a different quality of supply for them. And just like they have poisoned you, they do the same to everyone else in their lives. The stories made up about their crazy exes, they're telling about you. The greater the fear you pose to them out of that relationship, the dirtier the smear campaign will be. You will have experienced gaslighting, where you were convinced your reality wasn't real. So you didn't understand a situation, or you were told that your facts were wrong. And you may have discovered lies, and again they told you you were wrong. You'd misunderstood the situation. You'd got the information and you'd twisted it in some way. They weren't flirting. They weren't on a dating website. It was an old account, or they'd been hacked. By the time you've collected your thoughts, they've confused you. They've turned the conversation around, and it is all your fault. If you'd given them more attention, then they wouldn't have whatever it was that they were doing, or they wouldn't have behaved in a certain way. This is all about power and control. And this is how the cycle worked. It went round and round, and there was a push and pull of emotions. And you were like that child playing with the daisy. She loves me not, or he loves me not. Only this was a really dangerous game, which affects you on so many different levels. You would manage to get back to that place of safety, but they'd kick the pedestal away again, and you would clamber back up, and bam, it would be gone again. Then discards were thrown into the mixture, where they used to make sure that you were fully hooked. The abuser may have disappeared, or they might have not called when they said they were going to, and you weren't able to contact them, and that could go on for hours, days, weeks or months. They might have been contactable, but they made excuses as to why they couldn't see you. They were too busy, or they were ill, and they didn't want to infect you, or a family member was ill. And then they reappear with a gift, a compliment, and you hook back in again, and this feeling that you got at the beginning of the relationship, reaffirming that they did still love you, and you got your hormone fix, and then you settle down. And these discards, this cycle continues until there's nothing left for them, and this is the final discard. Perhaps they drained you of all your money, and you could no longer support them in the way that you had done previously, or you had no energy left, let alone for yourself. Maybe they'd spotted a new victim who would help them upgrade in some way, who had something more to offer, a new supply, or a supply of attention. Because in truth, that's what you were to them. They could provide them with a better quality of life, and you were no longer fit for purpose. The emotional abuser might have told you that you are bipolar, and you might wonder if that's true. But think back to the time before you met them. and I bet you are a normally functioning person in society. If you feel that you do have a mental health condition, then please go and seek help. At the end of the relationship, one of two things happened. You woke up and realised that you had to get out of this situation, or they discarded you. When you've woken up, when you've realised what's actually going on and you need to get away, you've realised that something is really wrong, and you might take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And you realise that you can't live with this person anymore. If you were discarded, you go crazy, just like all the other crazy exes that they told you about. In this situation, you need to be really careful, as you might prove them right. In both scenarios, you've been trauma bonded, and you need to untangle from the chains. They are playing the victim, and they will paint you in a negative light. So in the game of two halves, the first half was the relationship, and then there's a break. There's that intermission. And then the second half starts, and that could be the divorce. So while you're waiting for the referee to blow his whistle, let's take a breath and enjoy the serenity. It's the calm before the storm. This form of abuse penetrates on so many different levels. Your brain was being tricked to believe that what you were told was the truth, and it needs to take time to de-traumatize it. For people healing from a toxic relationship, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. And you might have started to wonder what was happening, and you believed you couldn't trust your own judgment. And it's really important to remember that you will not get closure, but it is very helpful to use the time to understand what and why you feel the way you do, and understand what comes next and the healing that needs to be done. Through my own healing journey, I know the damage emotional abuse leaves on your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And how hard not only to walk away, but it is to recover from. So this to me was a game, and I didn't have the rules, and each time I thought I understood them, they were changed. Emotional abuse is a pattern of behaviour where one person uses fear. They use humiliation, guilt, manipulation tactics to gain power over another. Unlike physical abuse, it often goes unnoticed, and the damage it causes puts you in a state of confusion. You had no idea it was taking place. It's a bit like Chinese water torture. It happens so very slowly, and it turns you crazy. They chipped away at your self-esteem, and you began to doubt your own perceptions of reality. I think it's a natural response when you're experiencing being hurt or duped by someone, that you hope that they experiencing something similar, or they will experience it, particularly when you've been hurt by them and you're in pain. And if you're waiting to know when the emotional abuser is going to experience karma for the damage that they've caused to you, you're either at the beginning of your healing journey, or you are on your way to recovery, but you're not fully recovered. The abuser used many tricks and tactics to trap you and to gain power and control over you, to control over your life and your finances. They manipulated you into believing that they were protecting you when in fact they were actually abusing you. And if you're not careful, the chains and the rumination and the information can turn you even crazier. And it leaves you wanting to use the tactics that they've used on you back on them. Please believe me when I say this will not end well. You will get hurt. Your wounds are screaming out in pain at the moment. Use this time. Use this time between the first half, the first part of the game, and the second part of the game to heal. Use this time to divorce from them emotionally. So when you come out of a toxic relationship, there are so many things going on in your body and your mind. You're just like a drug addict or someone trying to give up an addiction. You have cravings, and your craving is a person. You are trapped, and you've no idea the abuse was taking place. Trauma bonding is one of the reasons it's so hard to heal from toxic and emotionally abusive relationships. The damage caused puts you in a state of confusion, as you had no idea that this abuse was taking place. Trauma bonding made it hard to enforce boundaries, and this is why it's so painful to stay away from them. After they got you addicted to the oxytocin and the dopamine through their love bombing, they started to introduce situations that release stress hormones. And this was done with the slight put downs, creating drama, manufacturing emotions. When they threatened your safety through their bad behaviour, you turned to them for help and protection. You rationalised their behaviour, believing they cared about you, and this created further bonding. And this was why you felt so connected to them. So could it be that your stress levels are so high because you're experiencing fear and you can't imagine life without them? Much like a physical wound, these emotional wounds really hurt. They cause us pain, and it might leave us without the emotional coping mechanisms others may have. And it might be one of the reasons you don't feel whole. By tracking down the wound and allowing it to heal, you can start to feel whole again, and you can break the cycle. But do remember that if you've been walking around with these wounds for decades, it might not happen within hours. You've learnt behaviours, you've learnt ways of protecting yourself from being hurt any further. So you might need to also work on changing your thoughts as well. And when you think about the way you reacted to things, what is the emotion that's coming up for you? The abuser who's triggered this reaction was acting like an earworm. They've been constantly feeding you with information. They've been undermining you. They've been telling you what to think and how to feel. They've been telling you who you are, who you should be, what you should be doing, and who you should be spending your time with. So could it be that you now feel abandoned and you feel very alone? Could it be that you are watching them playing happy families with a new partner and you're in pain? And the other thing the wounds are doing are keeping you trapped. They're not allowing you to move on. And I do know this pain is very real. I felt that pain myself, or my own version of it. And I heard so many times the best vengeance is to walk away and live your best life. Easier to say than it is to do when your emotions get carried away and you can't breathe. And if you're not careful, the chains and the rumination and the information can turn you in even crazier, and you're left waiting for them to get their karma. And this is the half-time period. You need to regroup with your team, and this could be your chance to change the circumstances. They are doing to their new supply exactly what they did to you. They will have tweaked it, they've learned from you how to refine it, but it will be the same. So during this half-time period, instead of watching and waiting and punishing yourself while this is all happening, take your life off hold. Your life was paused from the moment you met them. Instead of trying to live the fake future you created with them, mourn the loss of your hopes and dreams. You may long for justice, waiting around for this to happen, hoping you will witness it. Ask yourself, where are these emotions coming from? What wound is it? And is vengeance a dish best served cold? I will put the link to that video in the description box below. This is a game of two halves. You can now change the circumstances. You can change how you feel, and you can heal the damage that they caused. This is your second half. Perhaps you're still in pain and you don't think you'll be taken seriously, or you realise that they would manipulate everyone in the divorce process. Maybe you're ready to take a deep breath and take a step forward. It doesn't have to be your best foot either. We will never know how much damage they really caused and how many people that have taken their lives because of behaviour. They are false self, a fake reality, and they do this from the ego to protect themselves. Remember, you lived that life, living behind the mask. They may project a new image now, but what is the truth? Is this about trying to prove to yourself that you aren't crazy? They're gone. They went off into the distance. They lied about you and left you to pick up the pieces. So do it. Pick up the pieces and use this time, the lull before the storm, to repair the damage that they caused and create a new life. So ask yourself, what is it driving this wound? And are you trying to prove to everyone, including yourself, that you aren't crazy? Trying to justify their behaviour? Trying to justify why you allowed this to happen? And what is happening to you while you're waiting? Remember, they will always be trapped, living from drama to drama, claiming they hate it. They live in a state of constant alert, trying to stay out of abandonment hell. Their fragile inner self is in pain. Every slight made or criticism cuts them, and then they go into rage. They are never going to experience what it's like to feel whole. They are never going to know what it's like to connect and to bond, because they live in a constant fear of being abandoned. You are in pain, and you know how it feels. It feels like hell. You feel like you're imprisoned by their wounds, or your wounds. They very kindly mirror back to you. But this is your half time. This is your time to change the play of the game. So gather together all your teammates and have a team chat. What wounds are they holding? What karma are they looking for? What justice do they want? Are they willing to step up and do some internal work? So when you arrive at the second half, you'll be in a position to play a different game, one where you are stronger and more focused. If you want an eye for an eye type justice, you have some more work to do. I urge you to do more healing, because those thoughts are coming from wounds. I'm sure you don't want to hurt anyone or see anyone hurt. So where is this emotion coming from? You're looking for this route that takes you to giving no. There's a door that says no on it. They are bullies who use others' fear and insecurities to hurt them. And if you're fully healed, then you no longer want to hurt them back. If you're healed, you'll no longer be thinking about them. So are you ready to step up and do the healing and step into an amazing life that's waiting for you? And if you do want to see them get justice or karma, there it is in its full glory. They don't want you to do this. They actually want you to stay small and wounded. You are their karma. And ask yourself, what do you want the second half of this game to look like? The one where you are chasing the ball and the players of the other team, or the one where you dominate the game and they are chasing you? And one thing to consider as you prepare for this game is who you have on your team. Pick wisely. You can add some archetypes like the sovereign or the warrior, your legal team if you're using one, your inner boss. Who will your dream team be? Start with 5 people. If you could pick anyone to support you, spiritually, who would it be? Financially, who would it be? Mentally, who would it be? Emotionally and physically, who would you have? And you could write the statement, what would, and then put your spiritual arm, your financial arm, your mental help, your emotional and your physical support, and say what would, and name that person, do to help you make decisions, to make right choices, to build up your self-esteem. Remember, the game of 2 halves is a sporting reference. It refers to circumstances that change suddenly. You be that change. Use this time as a time to build up your support, claim back your power. I hope you found this video useful. If you'd like to find out more ways of working with me, I'll put the links below in the description box, along with the links to both my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. I'll also put the 2 free workbooks, Turn Broken into Your Superpower and Self-Care is Vital, in the description as well. Please don't forget to like and share the channel, and I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.